Right, three cameras speeding. Audrey and Saskia. Marking. Let's start with you used to organize this event. Partly of what we see here, you were responsible for the heritage of it, the history of it. Chat to me about that.
You go. You started it.
Okay, I'll start at the beginning.
Oh,
2008.
Okay.
And we started in Gauteng with 78 people in the room. That was the first year.
No.
And it was one track, there was no exhibition, and it was just talking innovation on a stage in a place where there wasn't any incubators, any accelerators, any legislation, any funding for innovation, just starting that conversation. That's where we started.
And what happened then? Like 78 to this, Saskia?
Yeah, so over the years, I mean, it's been running for 17 years now. And it just gradually grew. I think as people realized what the value is of bringing various people within an ecosystem together over 3 days, what that magic is that actually takes place there. And it grew, I think 2018 was one of the biggest summits yet, where we had over 3,000 people, so from 70 to 3,000, over 54 countries, I think it was. And we made some calculations that year that there was over R1 billion worth of deals that took place on that platform over the 3 days. And that is what that impact allows us to do. I think this is a platform where government, incubators, ecosystem players, all of these guys can really connect over 3 days. And I think that's where the magic is.
Absolutely. So we're talking, if you want to speak about value add, that is an incredible value add to specific economies, and that's what the summit is all about. Tell me about, you've since moved on. What are you guys doing now?
So, after that evaluation, R1 billion of deals, we realized we're laying the table, but we're not participating, eating, we're just hosting all the time. So we decided to start in 2020 in COVID, when the summit actually went digital, everybody was in stress that do we still have existence? We actually had the space to conceptualize Anza Capital, and we realized we will become the life of the tech startup, because in that deal making, most of the money came from overseas.
Oh, wow.
So we realized that locally we need to step up and start giving them wings. It doesn't help just to help them and teach them. We actually need to fund them.
Yeah, it's not the showing, it's the doing. Let's get down to actually putting, what was it, foot op the grond, like that type of stuff. Okay, great. Speak to me about the partnerships that well, firstly comes from the SAIS Summit and innovation, the Innovation Summit, especially between government and private sector. I feel like there's a lot of talks happening that can really help change our landscape with all of its challenges. What type of partnerships do you think, what type of partnerships are you looking to facilitate in Anza Capital?
Sure, that's so broad, and it spans to so many partnership types. I think from our perspective, we're not just focusing on South Africa anymore, and we've got an African mandate. And the summit really allows people from different spaces, different geographies to come together and create innovative partnerships that you didn't perhaps previously existed. And we really want to create a value chain within the VC ecosystem that's sustainable. So with the summit, that creates this platform for co-creation, capacity building, learning, connection. We always see that funding component's totally missing. And that's where the VC firm now comes in to support these guys. We always say that there's this missing middle in Africa, and we truly believe it's the tech startup that's totally overlooked, underfunded, and it's the early stage guys. It's not your Series A, B startups that are already going strong, profitable. It's before that.
Like pre-seed.
Exactly. And how many innovative ideas just get lost because they're not supported. So that's really where our core is, to help these guys overcome that valley of death and then push them further into the life cycle. And those are the partnerships that we form across that space.
I love that word support, especially like in South Africa and the African landscape. Support comes down to we can use all of these big words, partnerships and networks and whatever, but it's really who you know and who you can connect that innovative idea to. So how do you help facilitate that? Like the man on the ground has a beautiful idea, doesn't know anyone. What happens?
From a venture capital perspective and a little bit on that PPP, public-private partnership component, in the beginning, private sector can't be alone. You know, so that's our history with the summit and the work. But actually in that space, you need a lot of grant systems because the risk is too high for private sector. So the grants de-risk private sector money that we bring to the table to unlock more grants. So we help them access grants, we guide them around the system, where to try and find that. So it's fundraising, but it's also market fit, it's minimum viable products. So there's a lot of work to get startups from a technology readiness level that a customer actually wants to buy this product at a certain price point. That work often takes, at the university level, 6 years. You know, a doctorate, a research project, and that's granted, and then that spins out into a startup, for instance.
And then they most often not investment ready for VC even. So there's a lot of work in terms of the acceleration that needs to happen. The summit also has a platform they call the Tech Tribe Accelerator. And that is where they take these guys into an entire 6-month program to actually get them investment ready. So the pipeline that we see are most often more suited to that type of initiative pre our investment. So again, it's a partnership that we then at least continue in that funnel, push them back into that space, let them grow to the point where we can actually look at them. And then forming partnerships with other later stage VCs, because obviously in a fund life cycle, you don't want to continue with these babies for longer than a few years. You want to pass them on so that they can grow further. And a lot of people play in that area, but they're not necessarily playing in this space because it's hard. It's sweat you have to put in, it's time. And there's a lot of basics that you still need to help them get right before they can actually move further.
Interesting. It's you hit the nail on the head there. I think we very rarely think about the amount of time it actually takes to get to product market fit, or just putting an MVP out there from someone who's got a great idea. I mean, the conversations we have, people would put up their hand, I've got this great idea for a business. Oh, guys, do you have any idea how long this will take? And especially in the tech space, like it's an extremely competitive space in the international sphere. How do you think South Africans and Africans can hold the torch when it comes to an international market?
So we hosted a series of US investors this week as a side event. And that's how we support the SA Innovation Summit at the moment. They landed, and then we had lots of conversations with them. And I think we've got a competitive advantage here because if you get dollars, you run longer in Africa and you can prove your point, you can prove your market. But then we also want companies to grow in Africa across borders. So you've got two pathways. The one is growing across Africa, providing then a pathway for an international acquirer into Africa. So that's the one. The other one is you grow, prove your point, and then go to a very developed market and earn in either euros or dollars. And that makes it a very attractive company that's very affordable for overseas companies often, except if they really grow in those markets. So there's two pathways, and that's how we try and bridge to other and more developed economies.
Interesting. In evaluating these ideas, these startups coming through, how important is it for you that they actually serve South African economies rather than having capital go out of the continent, out of Africa, out of South Africa?
I think there's a balance that we need to get right within that. Africa is the next frontier. It is
Absolutely.
a massive emerging market, and the opportunity within Africa itself is endless. So I think if you can really tap into that and support these guys and protect it. I mean, IP is a massive thing at the moment, and when is the right time to actually give certain startups the opportunity to move out? Some of them have to. Some of them that it's really from Africa to the world, but the story resides here. It starts here. It's originating from here, and I think the impact is still seen in Africa. So even we're very much focused on making sure that the solutions are African solutions addressed for Africans, but have the potential to globally scale.
Awesome. I mean, you can't expect, it's that give and take. You can't expect investment to come in, but you don't give anything back. So the balance is something that I didn't really think about. You mentioned like African problems that's able to scale. I think that's very important. I always see external companies, or international companies, trying to solve African or South African problems, and they don't get the nuance of our challenges, of our economies, of our geography, of our logistics. Speak to me about that.
We actually see that in the VC space as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of funders want to come and put money into Africa, but they have no idea where to start. They don't know how to do it. They don't know what the challenges are on the ground. And I think that's our model, is how to act as an intermediary that has the know-how and that can actually take that money and make it efficient, scalable, and make the best use of it. So we're very much focused on building this bridge between other continents. The US is a big focus for us at the moment, and they've got a passion. They want to make a difference here. They want to play in this space, but they don't know how. And I think that's an amazing opportunity us as a VC industry actually has. And we need to optimize it, because at the end of the day, it's that hero where the tech entrepreneur is the guy we want to actually support and uplift. It's not the intermediaries in between.
And maybe just to balance that out, African problems are often also not unique. Our online school, growing ferociously across Africa, could, for instance, go to India, to Latin America, and potentially to USA maybe. So we mustn't underestimate that our problems are not always that unique. So we want startups that has a global mindset and think of scale. And where is that scale? That scale could be here, but it could be anywhere.
It's interesting you mentioned education specifically. I think this is an industry that's long overdue for disruption. We're still teaching, in some instances, the way we used to teach 100, 200 years ago. And with tech becoming more prevalent, especially in Africa, internet access, internet penetration, we're just opening up a bunch of possibilities in that space. Is that one of the spaces that you're actively supporting?
Digital inclusion is one of our verticals.
Right, awesome. Let's ask this question, because this is something that I'm a firm believer in. How important is storytelling how important is storytelling in being a brand, being a startup?
Oh, Audrey is the best one with it because she's so good with it.
No, I do think storytelling is essential, because it's people making investment decisions. It's not an AI. It's usually an investor, and they want to feel like shifting the needle. And you have to talk to them. I just listened to a pitch to American, and while this guy pitched, he translated all his rands into dollars. And I thought, how clever, And that's storytelling, Who are you talking to, and what does this investor want to hear? and getting that aligned. So a very important skill. I don't think all startups has it, and I think often they miss out because the CEO might be very technically very sound or maybe financially very sound. So it's companies you want to go in, but they don't have that part.
Let's quickly go to a couple of success stories. You've mentioned verticals that you're interested in. The tech space to me is an odd one because I've always thought it's very saturated, and I always thought, startups in general terrify me, maybe because I don't understand it. Which verticals are you interested in? Which verticals are you seeing a lot of, shall we call it, return on investment, but also like meaningful positive impact coming from?
So within our investment strategy, there are three that we focus on, and I just want to say tech is broad and saturated, but it's not just deep tech companies. It's one that we definitely want to support, but it's also tech-enabled businesses.
Yeah.
So as long as they have capacity to rapidly scale, that is the type of company, and you can only do that through tech. So there must be some sort of tech element, but we're focusing on food technology, and that's broad. That's everything from production all the way to consumption. Clean technology, which is very much focused on water, waste, mobility, that kind of thing, and then the digital inclusion part. And that's where we see a lot of impact as well, because it's services that get to people that didn't previously, for instance, have services. And all of this, by addressing this missing middle within those verticals, I mean, the job creation is immense. The economic impact on the continent can be immense if they actually have that space where they can just jump this valley of death. So inherently, there's impact.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter in which verticals you focus on. We've decided that those are the three that we want to do, and within that, there's a layer of intellectual property across all of that.
Yeah.
So in the space that we
Is that to protect yourself?
Yes, both for the startup and for the investor. Because I think if you securitize your IP in the right way, you open up a lot of revenue streams for the startups that they previously did not, for instance, have, but you make them more resilient. And if we focus on that, because it's so early stage, they don't necessarily have post-revenue, EBITDA, or anything like that yet. You need to have something to securitize, and that's something that we want to actually take, again, like I say, from Africa and push it into the world through IP.
I think, with IP as well, like sometimes we don't realize that the application that we're designing IP for might not be the one that we end up using it for down the line, which opens up a lot of possibilities, especially in spaces like this one. The whole monetization behind tech has been an interesting thing for me. With the rise of the subscription model and moving away from advertising models, what do you see happening there? Are we still looking at subscription models? How do you monetize from a startup to customer point of view? What would it look like over the next 10 years? Because it also feels like people are moving away from that model or being more resilient to that.
I think you're talking of one specific trend, and that's like the app. This space where an app is not the only technology.
Right.
You know, that is the challenge with the app. You know, how do you get people to pay for the app? Is it on the advertising stream? Is it on the subscription model? And it will depend on what's happening on the app. We haven't invested in one such company. And to tell you the truth, what we do is, for instance, I'm thinking of an energy efficient company that we've invested in. And they've got a physical hardware rolling out electrical chargers, and then they back it up with a SaaS model. And that's then a subscription model. So for me, the subscription goes with a lot of data, access to deep tech. That is the real value there. True value that people are prepared to pay for. And can you cluster it? I think those are the ones that we're more attracted to than a normal app.
Building in as much as possible resilience in your pricing model. So there's
salon.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other one that we have invested in is Queely. That's a township platform where merchants, so sellers, have a wallet, a payment wallet. And then what Queely does, can you hear, this is not all an app. They bring corporate products onto the app, like insurance, like bus tickets.
Perfect.
You know, so it's a digital transaction. They want to put in physical goods. We don't like that so much, because then you've got delivery, last mile logistics again. So that's the whole thing. It's how do you package it all together that it makes sense, can make money, can truly add value.
What does the future hold for your company?
Oh, so much.
We want to raise $1 billion, and it's a drop in the ocean for African tech startups, and touch more than 500 million lives in the next 15, 20 years.
Goosebumps.
I think we can end it right there. Thank you so much for